Hello again, Wally Wood here with the Revelation File. Welcome to another episode in our ongoing series of broadcasts and teachings and things of this nature. I thought I'd bring to your attention today some things that are going on in Israel that you may not be aware of. We're all familiar with the skirmishes and the unsettlements and things of this nature that are going on there. But there are some prophetic things that are taking place that are not necessarily open to the public knowledge to a great degree. As we go into this, I will remind you again of our copyright and disclaimer notice that we are using from time to time certain elements that are copyright and protected and things of this nature. So I wanted to let you know that this is part of our ongoing element in trying to bring some teaching to you, our fair use doctrine of the copyright law. So we wanted to make that official with each and every program that we do. So in the prophetic world news right now, there was, back in 1982, I was the national spokesman for what was known as the Asher Oil Drilling Project. And this was an ongoing effort from Energy Exploration Incorporated here in Houston to look for oil, to discover oil in Israel based on the prophetic scriptures, starting in Genesis and also in Deuteronomy. And it was spearheaded by Andy Sorrell and Dick Parker here in Houston. And they were given this map of ancient Israel based on the tribal inheritances of the tribes in the nation back in the days of Moses and Abraham. And it was in this map and in the scriptures that went with the map that they made some discoveries of the prophecies of the last days having to do with a major oil discovery in the nation of Israel. And it so states in the Word that it would be in the last days. So they began the effort back in the 70s and 80s, in which they were able to map out geographically the presence of a major oil field directly beneath the nation of Israel. So drilling began in the 80s, and I was the national spokesman, and I gave daily updates on the progress of that project. It came to an end, as I recall, back in 84, where they lost the bit very deep in the earth. They were about 5 miles deep. They were using a rig that was designed to only go 3.5 miles. But again, God added his miracle touch and enabled them to go as deep as 5 miles in their pursuit of this one particular major field. So they capped the well in, I believe it was June of 84. And it's been kind of dormant ever since. Excuse me. But in recent times, new efforts have gone into the search for oil in Israel by not just, in fact, energy exploration is no longer involved, but a number of companies are now involved in this pursuit, not just American, but also international companies as well. And we'll be going into that here in just a moment. But today I want to tell you what's going on today, and we've been hearing in the news here of late of the promise of major oil finds in that nation. In 2012, the Jerusalem Post announced that oil and gas discovered off Tel Aviv coastline. Investor Place newsletter in 2012, could major discovery make Israel the next energy giant? The AFEC, an Israeli subsidiary of the U.S. firm Genie Energy, has undertaken exploratory drilling in the Golan Heights of Israel since September of 2015, when it discovered a field reportedly measuring 350 meters or 1,000 feet thick. As compared to the average world strata of 20 to 30 meters thick, this field is 10 times larger than the global average. According to oilandisrael.net, quoting, the oil estimated to lie underground within AFEC's exploration license area could supply Israel for decades or more. Israel currently consumes 270,000 barrels of oil per day. If billions of barrels lie underground in the Golan, And if Israel is successful in producing even a fraction of the reserves above ground, then Israel could easily be oil dependent. End of quote. AFEC is under contract with the Israeli government to drill 10 wells in the area. Aruch Shiva on Fox News reports that early indicators suggest the field contains 6.7 trillion cubic feet of gas and 1.5 billion barrels of oil. Fox News reports potentially game-changing oil reserves discovered in Israel. Time magazine, tapping the promised land. Can Israel be an energy giant? I'm also aware of the fact that Associated Press had made the announcement that Israel could become the third largest oil exporter among the nations. Investment U, investing in Israel's epic oil and gas boom. Israel is set to shake up the energy landscape in the Middle East like no one has ever seen before. End of quote. Geological Survey of Israel, quote, significant reserves of oil shales have been discovered in Israel. Resources of these organic enriched and marly chalks in the Mishor Rotam area, for example, are estimated to total several billion tons. End of quote. So the world is discovering, excuse me, the world is discovering that there is something going on in Israel that gets their attention, and it has to do with oil and gas. So I'm going to take you on the trail of the biblical record to show what God said in prophecy for the last days for the nation of Israel on this matter of oil. In Deuteronomy 33:24, and of Asher he said, let Asher be blessed with children, let him be acceptable to his brethren, and let him dip his foot in oil. End of quote. That's the first mention. And this is what Andy and his company discovered in this particular passage. They was telling that the tribe of Asher would dip their foot in oil. And here you see a map that of ancient Israel and of Asher. Please notice that Asher is in the shape of an ankle and foot. The foot, the toe runs from, well, the entire length from Caesarea to Haifa. Caesarea in the south and Haifa at the heel. And here's a closer look at that area. The foot of Asher. The Asher oil promise. Genesis 49, verse 13 says, Zebulun shall dwell at the haven of the sea, and he shall be for a haven of ships. Deuteronomy 33:18, and of Zebulun he said, rejoice, Zebulun and Issachar. Verse 19, they shall suck of the abundance of the seas and of treasures hid in the sand. Suck of the abundance of the seas. That's suggesting of pipe, of drilling work. The sucking sound of pipe. Genesis 49:26. The blessings shall be on the head of Joseph, and on the crown of the head of him that was separate from his brethren. Somehow Zebulun and Issachar, both deep inland from the sea, will suck or pump treasures out of the sea and sand, such as refineries. And these treasures would create a haven for ships. The head or the crown of Joseph would be anointed or blessed with these treasures. Now, please notice the outline that we have on the map. In the layout of the lands of the tribes of Israel, you see what appears to be the left profile of a man's face looking toward the Mediterranean. We've got that outlined in red. On top of his head is a crown, the high point of which is Asher. Issachar and Zebulun are far inland, and yet they're promised that they're going to suck of the abundance of the seas, and that they will be a haven for ships. So it suggests the likelihood of refineries located inland from the discovery that would be made as Asher dips his foot in oil. And thy shoes shall be iron and brass, the Bible says. Iron and brass, such as above ground pipes. Interesting. Now, as we went into this in our early days of discovery, there was said to us a word study of 1 Chronicles 7, verses 30 through 39, that contain the names of the sons of Asher. In 1981, Larry Napier, senior pastor of House of Blessing Church in Nashville, Tennessee, produced a word study of the sons of Asher as a support for the Asher oil drilling project in Atlit, Israel, from 1980 to 1984. The oil project was conducted under the auspices of Energy Exploration here in Houston, under the leadership of Andy Sorrell. Following are the elements of that story, of that study. So what we're going to do is we're going to take you into the study in 1 Chronicles 7, verses 30 through 39, that give you the names of the sons of Asher and what they mean. This is going to be very, very revealing, I promise you. 1 Chronicles 7, verses 30 through 39. Verse 30, the sons of Asher were Imnah, Ishva, and Beriah, and Sarah, their sister. Verse 31, and the sons of Beriah were Eber and Malchiel, who was the father of Berzrath. Verse 32, and Eber became the father of Japhlet, Shomer, and Hotham, and Shua, their sister. Verse 33, the sons of Japhlet were Pasak, Bimal, and Ashvath. These were the sons of Japhlet. Verse 34, the sons of Shemar were Ahi and Rogah, Jehuba, and Aram. Verse 35, the sons of his brother Elam were Zophah, Imnah, Shilesh, and Amal. Verse 36, and the sons of Zophah were Suah, Harnephar, Shual, Beri, and Imrah. Verse 37, Bezer, Had, Shammah, Shilshah, Ithran, and Bera. Verse 38, the sons of Jether were Jephaneh, Pisbah, and Erah. Verse 39, and the sons of Ulah were Erah, Haniel, and Riziah. Now, I know this would be very boring to the average reader, but please stick with me here. There's a story being told here. Of special interest in this list are the meanings of the names and how these meanings relate to the pursuit and discovery of oil or petroleum in Israel in the latter days, Genesis 49, verse 1. Now, I make the stipulation in the word oil. We're talking about petroleum, not anointing oil. As many people have mistakenly assumed that that's what it's referring to, it's not. It's talking about the petroleum, the kind of oil that is underground. Continuing. In approaching this genealogy of the sons of Asher, we make note of the fact that this is a chronological list of generations. What is fascinating in this story of exploration, in each of the 9 verses, each division has its own unique prophetic summary or narrative concerning the miraculous process by which the latter-day blessings would come upon the land of Israel through Asher and his partners. So, starting in verse 30, of Asher, you have Imnah, which means good fortune, prosperity from the right hand. Ishva, meaning salvation from need to abundance, abiding success, to make equal by giving one's own property. Ishvi means same root as Ishva, so it's repeated twice. Sarah, the daughter, excessive pouring out, to overflow, to be unrestrained in running over. Here's the narrative. Asher will bathe his foot in oil. His shoes shall be iron and brass, which could mean above ground pipes. This oil will cause Asher to experience good fortune. Prosperity will be at his right hand. He will know economic salvation and such abiding success that he will be able to make his brothers equal to himself by sharing his abundance with them, even to an excessive pouring out or an unrestrained running over. Now, I make note of the fact that, again, Sarah, the sister of the brothers, daughter of Asher, because she's in that list, she's included in the narrative and the meaning of her name. Verse 31 of Beriah. Beriah means a bar or shaft. It's a verb to cause to go down through hastily. Eber, to be united or band together in fellowship, a company or association of joint businesses. Malchiel, God is king, anointed by God for a kingdom rule or dominion. Bizrath, the great-grandson, to bore or to pierce, connected to iron. I don't know about you, I get goosebumps just reading this, especially as, again, it relates to the end times. So here's the narrative. The oil will be made to pass hastily through shafts. These shafts will be drilled in the company of different groups into a joint venture with singleness of mind and intent. God is king, and with this oil he will anoint Israel for her coming kingly rule. These wells will be pierced or cut through with a cutting tool through the earth, such as a drilling bit. Now please keep in mind, these are ancient Bible verses in the Old Testament. Verse 32 of Aber. Japhet, Yah, Lord, causes to cast forth, especially of entrapped or enclosed substances with great force or thrust. Shomer, a diligent watcher or guard, a keeper. Hotham, to seal, to be closely bound by a seal, an earthen mold or a clay seal. Shua, the daughter, prosperity, to be rich and wealthy. Here's the narrative. Through the uniting of these groups, God will cause Asher to cast forth the entrapped oil like a cow who calves or a man who vomits. Such will be the great pressure of this release. The watchmen, or intercessors, must give diligence to guard, cover, and keep these projects with prayer. The oil will be closely bound by a seal, like an earthen mold. The seal will be an outward identification of the wealth, riches, and prosperity contained within. Verse 33 of Japhet. Pasak, to divide up or cut a cleft, to dislocate. Bimal, on top of a mountain ridge or a high place or ridge. Ashvath, to fully accomplish or to finish under great pressure or squeezing. Here's the narrative. God will cause the casting forth of Asher's oil to involve a cleft or a section cut out of the top of a mountain ridge or high geological ridge. Now, in Atlit, Israel, where the Asher project began, it's the highest geological point in the Asher region. This high place or mountain is also called oil or liquid pitch in Hebrew. God will fulfill the promises of Asher's inheritance by the use of pressure or squeezing. Verse 34 of Shamar, to watch over or guard. Ahi means my pain, my grief. Roga, crowded in, outcry or alarm. Jehuba, deeply hidden. Aram, high and exalted. Those who watch and pray must give close attention to times of pain or grief in the land. They must cry aloud and sound the alarm when the enemy crowds in from the hidden place. God will hear and lift high and exalt. Again, that is very apropos to the scene that we're seeing going on right now in Israel. Verse 35 of Helam, Shamer's brother. Dreams, to strengthen or make healthy. Zophah, to cause to overflow, to flood, come from the deep to the top. Imnah, good fortune. Shelesh, mighty, 3 in thirds. Amal, labor, toil, or suffer. The narrative. Through the use of dreams, God will grant strength and health. The result will be a flood of oil, an overflow from the deep which floats on the top of the ground. This overflow will be like honey exuding from the honeycomb. Thus Asher will withdraw good fortune, and triple strength will replace labor, toil, and suffering. Verses 36 through 37 of Zophah, cause to overflow, to flood from the deep to the top. Suah, meaning riches, distinction. Harnifer, breathe deep in peace and rest. Shual, prosperity. Bury means to dig deep, a well or a pit. These are the meanings of their names. Imrah, heights of Yah, the Lord, our God contends. Bezer, to enclose or trap by cutting, made inaccessible or difficult to get to, deeply hidden. That sounds like an oil project, doesn't it? Hod means glory, vigor, great outward display. Shama, desolation, desert, in a withdrawn place. Shilshah, three-storied chambers or towers. Pay attention to that. Very important. Three-storied chambers or towers. Ithron, never failing to flow, ever flowing, perpetual. Bira, to dig wells or pits. Here's the narrative. This great flood of oil will bring riches and distinction. Israel restfully breathes in prosperity because wells or pits have been dug. From the heights of heaven, God has contended for Israel by entrapping or enclosing Asher's promised oil by breaking the sides or edges of subterranean structures, thereby making the oil inaccessible or difficult to get to. The discovery of Asher's hidden oil will be the solving of a prophetic riddle, which will be revealed by a glorious outward display of the splendor of Israel under divine blessings. The desolation of Israel will be ended by mighty three-tiered towers, such as drilling rigs, producing perpetual enduring motion of rivers of oil which flow from the wells that have been dug. Does that remind you of what happened to Texas with Spindletop? Now, today, you have three-story drilling rigs throughout the state, but especially along the southern portion of the state, pumping never-ending rivers of oil perpetually. Interesting. Verse 38, of Jether, meaning preeminent, abundant, affluent, great excess. Jephthah, to shine forth, to cause to appear. Pispa, expansion, to enlarge or enhance. Era, strong like a lion, to dominate. Here's the narrative. Great excesses of wealth, abundance, and affluence will cause Asher and Israel to be preeminent. This promised oil will prepare them to shine forth with great expansion and the strength of a lion. Wow. Verse 39, of Ulah, meaning burden. Era, wayfarer. Haniel, meaning favor of God. Rizia, to pay for one's sin, to be paid off, made acceptable or favorable. The narrative. The burden of the wayfarer will be lifted by the favor of God, for God has paid for their sins and will treat them good. Here's the grand summary. Asher will bathe his foot in oil. His shoes will be iron and brass. This oil will cause Asher to experience good fortune. Prosperity will be at his right hand. He will know economic salvation and such abiding success that he will be able to make his brothers equal to himself by sharing his abundance with them, even to an excessive pouring out or an unrestrained running over. The oil will be made to pass hastily through shafts. These shafts will be drilled in the company of different groups into a joint venture with singleness of mind and intent. God is king, and with this oil he will anoint Israel for her coming kingly rule. These wells will be pierced or cut through with a cutting tool through the earth. Through the uniting of these groups, God will cause Asher to cast forth the entrapped oil like a cow who calves or a man who vomits. Such will be the great pressure of this release. The watchmen, or intercessors, must give diligence to guard, cover, and keep these projects with prayer. The oil will be closely bound by a seal, like an earthen mold. This seal will be an outward identification of the wealth, riches, and prosperity contained within. God will cause the casting forth of Asher's oil to involve a cleft or section cut out of the top of a mountain ridge or high geological ridge. This high place or mountain is also called oil or liquid pitch in Hebrew. God will fulfill the promises of Asher's inheritance by the use of pressure and squeezing. Those who watch and pray must give close attention to times of pain or grief in the land. They must cry aloud and sound the alarm when the enemy crowds in from the hidden place. God will hear and lift high and exalt. Through the use of dreams, God will grant strength and health. The result will be a flood of oil, an overflow from the deep which floats on the top of the ground. This overflow will be like honey exuding from the honeycomb. Thus Asher will withdraw good fortune, and triple strength will replace labor, toil, and suffering. This great flood of oil will bring riches and distinction. Israel restfully breathes in prosperity because wells or pits have been dug. From the heights of heaven, God has contended for Israel by entrapping or enclosing Asher's promised oil by breaking the sides or edges of subterranean structures, thereby making the oil inaccessible or difficult to get to. The discovery of Asher's hidden oil will be the solving of a prophetic riddle which will be revealed by a glorious outward display of the splendor of Israel under divine blessings. The desolation of Israel will be ended by mighty three-tiered towers producing perpetual, enduring motion of rivers of oil which flow from the wells that have been dug. Psalm 66, verse 3, Say to God, how awesome are your works! Because of the greatness of your power, even your enemies feign obedience to your will. I have an Asher map showing where this oil has been mapped. Won't go into it today. We're running out of time. I thank you for listening. I'm Wally Wood. Tune in again next time as we continue our look in the nation of Israel in the last days.
You have been watching the Revelation File Report with Wally Wood, a Wally Wood Ministries production from Houston, Texas. You are able to support the ministry by donating at wallywoodministries.com and by mail at Wally Wood Ministries, P.O. Box 42005, Houston, Texas 77242. Wally is available to present full 2-hour forums in your city called the Revelation File News Forum. For more details, contact Andy Valadez at 713-560-3348 or by email at andy@andyvaladez.com. The Revelation File News Report is a weekly update of global trends in the news as it aligns with end-time Bible prophecy. Tune in again next time and be sure to like and share this channel.